With the recent updates in UiPath email activities, a lot of people are having difficulties in sending emails along with single attachment and working with multiple attachment. How to do that? That is what we are going to see in this video. Hi everyone, welcome back to the next video on this channel. My name is Mukeshkala. I am a 4 times UiPath MVP and a LinkedIn top voice. I have shared my LinkedIn details on the page. Feel free to send a connection request. Also, we have a small WhatsApp community which you can scan the QR and join it to get the latest updates from the YouTube channel. Prior to this video, we have already covered a lot of email automation videos on the channel. So I have posted the video link in the description. Feel free to refer to the playlist. Today in this video specifically, I am going to talk about how to send multiple attachment into the latest activities of UiPath. Lastly, in case you are coming to the channel for the first time and haven't already subscribed, please consider subscribing to the channel to get the next videos in the same playlist. Having said that, let's get started. If I specifically talk about the agenda, today I am going to cover how can I send a single attachment. Then we are going to see how we can attach multiple files, or in other words multiple attachment. Then we are going to see how we can attach all the attachments from a folder, and lastly we are also going to see that how I can use the IResource option to send an email, right? So these are all the things which we are going to discuss in a step-by-step manner. I know a lot of you are advanced developers, so you might not want to go through the complete video. I have the timestamp in the description. You can just click on the timestamp and jump to the specific section of the video. Okay, and in case you want to learn and better understand, I would highly request you to just open your UiPath Studio, practice along with me so that you never forgot these concepts. Okay, so first thing first, I am back to my UiPath Studio and I have a solution open in front of me. So the prerequisite for sending any emails is that you need to have the uipath.mail.activities package available into your solution, so that you can actually go and set up the details, right? So you can always do the same thing with SMTP, you can always do the same thing with IMAP, you can always do it with the Outlook integration or any other thing, right? So for this video series, I'm specifically focusing about the SMTP because that is where people were facing issues, but the same concept applies to the other activities as well because the format of attachment is exactly the same. Okay, in case you are someone who is not having access to Outlook, Office 365 and those accounts, you can still use your Gmail account to send emails, right? And that is what we have already covered in the previous videos. So this setup, what you see on my screen, is from the previous videos. You would find this link in the description. Okay, so I have got an email activity, guys, which is called the send SMTP, and I'm sending email to myself. In the subject, I will just mention it like validate the connectivity, right? So I just want to first check whether this is working fine or not, and in the body I'll just like to say hello. Okay, so if I go to the properties, as of now, if you will see, I am just using the SMTP Gmail. I'm not using integration services, sending email. This is my app password generated in the last session, and these are all the details, right? So I'll just quickly save this, go here and run the file, because directly jumping to the attachment, first I wanted to see whether my connection is still working or not. Okay, so the automation is running and hopefully I should receive an email into my Gmail, right? And you can see that I have received the connectivity email, which means that my connection is valid. Okay, now let's just move forward towards the attachment, right? How do you work with attachment, right? Now if you see here, guys, so UiPath has made some update into the term of attachments, right? And for the video purpose, I have kept 3 sample files with me. We are going to see how you can work in these all scenarios, and we'll try to discuss what all automation scenarios you can have where you want to attach the file. Okay, Okay, so now the first scenario could be that I want to send an email, but I want to only attach a single file. Okay, so now to attach a single file, all you have to do is, I'll go back to the activities, and I'll take assign activity here. In the assign activity, I'll create a variable control plus K, and I'll call it str underscore single file. Okay, and then into the path I can just store the single path of that file. So I'll hit shift right click, copy as path, go back to UiPath Studio and pass it here, right? So I could have directly passed the path here, but let's say assuming that you are writing an automation and this is the path of the file which you have received by downloading from an application, or you are just trying to read it directly from a folder, so it is always good to store it in a variable, so it allows you reusability. Okay, now into your send SMTP email activity, right? So either you might have this layout, or you might have changed the layout by clicking on this plus button and have these options, right? And this is where a lot of people are getting confused, that how do I work with multiple attachment, because we have a lot of options, right? So now the first thing first is to work on a single file. You can simply click on this plus button, and then you have something which is called file paths, right? So you can simply go here and click on this guy which says file paths, and that will change the activity to look something like this. And now you would see here you have an option which says open the collection builder, and this collection builder will allow you to pass the variables, or in other words pass the path of the file. So I can click on that, and that will open this wizard for me. Now here you have two options. You can directly pass the path of the file. Please remember, it should be the complete path of the file from C colon data something, and not the absolute, not the relative path. It should be the complete path. Okay, and now here, since I already have it in the single file, I can just pass here and I say str single file, right? So that is how you just pass the single file. And if you observe this carefully, this is a string. So this variable is a type of string, that's why it is able to take, and I can just go and save this. Now UiPath is telling me that Mukesh, you have one item in the collection of the attachments. I'll save this, and to better differentiate in the subject, I'll just say this is a single file, and let me keep the subject just to hello, maybe from tutorials by Mukeshkala, email automation, right? But in the subject I have just mentioned it is a single file. Okay, if I save this, go here and I just say run the file. Now if everything works as expected, I should receive an email into my Gmail with a single attachment, and to validate we should have this file and one single attachment. Okay, and you can see here I have just received the same email with the subject and a single file. Now that is how you work with the single file, and I hope that is clear. Okay, now let's move to the next scenarios where you have fixed number of attachment. Now when I say fixed number of attachment, you are very much sure into your automation that I only want to send 2 files, or I only want to send 3 files, right? Why do I say that? Because if you might have noticed here into the file path collection, you have an option here which says add an entry, which means that as a developer I have an option to add multiple files here. But does that mean that if I have 50 files I need to take the 50 variables? The answer to that question is no, right? There are other ways to do that. We'll come back into the same video. But if let's say the attachment count is fixed and it is less like 2, 3, not beyond 4, right, that I'll keep you to decide, you can still use the same approach, right? So all you have to do is, let me just go and create one more variable, assuming that today I have a requirement I only want to send 2 files. So I can create one more variable where I can say str underscore second file, right? And in the value I can just mention that attach the second file as well, file 2, right, which is the complete path, and I save this, right? And now you might have guessed it, in the file path attachment you can just click here which says add an entry, and here you can attach the second file, and that's it. right? And that way now you would have two attachment. Let's say you have three, you can keep it three, but this only works when you already know that how many file I want to attach. Okay, so I just go here and I save this, and then into this one I can say two file. Okay, two file attachment, maybe attachments, right? Anything just to differentiate, right? So I'll just go here and I'll say run the file, right? So this approach also works when you have the fixed number of files. You can always do it for 10, 20, but that does not make sense, right? So we'll come to that part also, right? So now if I go back to my, you can see here I have now received two file attachment, the same email automation, file 1 and file 2 both are attached. Okay, so that is how you can work with single and multiple attachment if the count is fixed. Okay, now let's move further and try to see how else we can attach the file. And now we are talking about attaching the multiple files. Okay, so I'll just go to this collection and I'll delete both of them. Okay, so it's back to this, and now you would see here there are two options for you. One is file path attachment collection and the other is file path attachments, right? We'll see one by one. First talk about this one, which is file path attachment collection. In what scenario I can utilize this and how, right? So for example, today I want to write an automation where I have to attach all the files from this folder, which is the sample files. Okay, I don't know the count. Sometimes the count may be 3, sometimes the count may be 4, 5, 6, but my requirement is simple. I want to attach all the files which are available in this folder. I can go ahead and use this one, which is the file path attachment collection. How to do that? So first let's try to understand it from the technical and then I'll implement, right? So first, if you will see here into the file path attachment collection, if I hit Control plus K and I create a variable, let's call it var1. Okay, just for understanding purpose, if you see the variable now, var1 is of the I enumerable of string, right? So that means that in case you want to pass anything to that, it should be I enumerable of string. Okay, so this is the variable this guy expects, right? Now I want to create and provide all these files one by one. There are multiple ways to do it. Let me try to give you a simple one where I can just read all this file from this folder, add all of them to a collection and pass that collection to this activity, right? So let's try to do that. So for that, first let me go and I'll just disable this. I will disable this as well. Okay, and I'll create a new, I'll take an assign activity. Okay, and in that I will write an expression. Okay, by the way, you can always use the autopilot as well, but I already know the syntax, which is directory dot get files. Get me all the files from the directory, and then we just pass the path of the folder. My bad. Control C, go back here, Control V. Okay, so I am asking UiPath to get me all the files from that folder, and I'll say save. Okay, and then that will, if you know a little bit of .NET, right? So you can see here directory dot get files give you a string array. Okay, so now I can just go and save here. Now here I can say that Control plus K str underscore paths of file, where I am saying that this is the file path where we have all this data. And now once this variable is created, I want to store all of this into a string array, or you can also create a list as well, right? So I'll go to the variable. As of now, this str paths file is of the type string, so I'll go to this drop down and then I will select something which is called array of t. Okay, you can also go for list, but I'll prefer array. And from here I can see array of string, right? Because when I read all those paths that are coming as string, same thing which we did for the multiple attachments. And I'll just go here and I'll say string and I'll say save, and now that error is gone, right? So because just to double check and tell you guys that whenever we use directory.get files, we are getting a string array, or you can also use it in the list, and all you have to do is just put here .toList, right? So that's a different implementation, but if you are a beginner, you can stick to this approach. Okay, so now we have a string array, I have a path of all this string, and now all I have to do is into this one which says file path attachment collection, I'll just pass the str paths for the file. I'll save this, no error, and then I can say multiple attachments using string array. Okay, I'll save this. And now I have not specified how many files I want to attach. I am asking it to give me all the files from that folder. I'll save this. In here I have 4 emails, right? So I can just go and say run the file. Okay, so now if everything works as expected, I should receive an email with 4 attachment, right? And you can see here that I have received an email with multiple attachment using string array. That's my spelling mistake, right? But multiple attachment using string array, I was able to get all these files, right? So that is how you can still use the string array by using this multiple attachment option, by using this option which is called the str file path option. Okay, so I hope you were able to follow along till this point. Okay. Okay, so now moving ahead, the last one for today is I am going to tell you that how you can use the iResource or this attachment thing which is available in UiPath to send email with attachment. Okay, now whenever you use this activity, right, you would see here into the attachment you have this option which you are able to directly attach it without going to this option which we have already seen, the file path and this collection, right? So here you have an option which is, if I just go here and hit Ctrl+K and I just create a variable called var3 just to show you the data type, right? You would see here in the variables the data type is IEnumerable of iResource, right? That how do I pass IEnumerable of iResource? That is what also a lot of developer get confused, and let's also try to address that as well. Okay, so in UiPath the easiest way of getting the iResource is having an activity which is called path exist. Okay, I can just drag and drop an activity which is called path exist. Now you might be thinking, Mukesh, why are you using that? The answer for that is absolutely simple. If you go to the properties, you would see that it gives you the reference as ILocalResource, right? And that is what I wanted to get, right? So for example, today I want to use this option, which is this attachment option, and I don't want to use the previous methods. Okay, and I want to use this one. So I'll go here and I'll say that I want to check whether the file exists or not. Let's try to attach this one, which is the file2. I'll copy as path. Okay, and then in here I'll just try to pass the path of the file, that this file exists or not, right? And then into their automation logic, you can always mention that if this file exists, do this, don't exist, all of that is your implementation. What I'm interested is in the file exist. I'll go to the properties, and here something which is called resource, I'll hit a tab, and it has created something which is called file resource. Okay, and now if you go to the variables, you would see that the file resource is type of ILocalResource. Now if I go back here into the attachment and I just pass that file resource, it's not going to work, right? So what I have to do, let me tell you a easier way. So first in the attachment, hit Ctrl+K and create a variable. I'm calling it something like iResource, attachment of iResource, right? And this variable now I want to pass whatever I have got from that. So I'll just go to the activities, take assign activity. Now into the attachment iResource, I just want to pass the output of this activity, which was the file resource. Still getting an error. So all I have to do is put this, I think it's called angular bracket. I forgot the name. Okay, anyways, we need to just put this bracket, and that way you would be able to convert this to, if I go to the variables, so what I have basically done is this ILocalResource I have converted it to IEnumerable, right? So which is having a property of list, which is you can enumerate, right, collections. So then now you just have to pass it here. For example, tomorrow you have more than one file. You can hit a comma and pass the second ILocalResource also here, right? I just put a string, that's why I was getting an error, but you got an idea that in case you have one more, you can pass all the attachment like this. Okay, so that is again your implementation. And then once that is done, you can just pass this complete thing into this attachment, and that's it, right? And now into the send SMTP, I'll just say attachment using ILocalResource. So if this works as expected, as of now I have attached only a single file using this one, but you can attach multiple files. You can use a loop, you can use a for each loop for all the file, put this collection, pass it to the variable, and pass all of them using the ILocalResource, or you can use the other ways, right? So if this one works as expected, what we are expecting is a new email into my mailbox, which I have sent using the ILocalResource. Okay, and here it is, right? You can see that I have received a new email which says attachment using ILocalResource, and I was able to attach the file, right? So that is how you can work with multiple different ways of sending emails and attaching multiple different files, right? I hope you guys were able to follow along. Any more questions, any more doubts, feel free to write me in the comments, or you can also drop me an email as well. Okay, I'll highly appreciate your feedback on this content, and yes, in case you are liking this content, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and see you in the next video. Bye.